At the heart of an industrial revolution is an innovation that changes everything. Building AI Boston sees artificial intelligence as a renaissance. From the heart of innovation and the mecca of tech learning, we bring you AI for Real People, a conversation for everyone. Join us on this episode of Building AI Boston as we welcome the remarkable Joanna Peña-Bickley, a pioneer in the fields of design and artificial intelligence. Known as the mother of cognitive experience design, Joanna has revolutionized how businesses and brands approach AI-driven creativity and innovation. Her trailblazing work spans top global organizations where she blends artistry, empathy, and technology to create human-centered solutions. Don't miss this deep dive into her journey, the future of AI in design and hub of innovation. Welcome to Building AI Boston, a show that brings you stories about real people and how they use artificial intelligence. I'm Anna DeVere, and my co-host is Kara Peterson. Kara, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, nice to see you, Anna.
Kara is an AI founder who resides in Boston, or as I like to call it, the Mecca of Tech. And today we are visiting with Joanna Peña-Bickley, also known as the mother of cognitive experience and a pioneer in generative AI. Welcome to the show, Joanna.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you with us. And Kara, I understand you met Joanna at an event at MIT. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. And it was great because I was really early into the space. We had only been out with our company for a few months, and I happened to meet Joanna at an event at MIT Media Lab at a Women in AI breakfast, which was amazing. And when I realized who I was sitting next to, I have to admit I got a little giddy. I'm not gonna lie.
The same. Well, on this show, we'd like to talk a little bit about the upside of artificial intelligence. So we can't think of anybody more perfect than you, Joanna.
Oh.
And also, we like to give a little bit of historical perspective. We know that, like any disruptive technology, is by its nature disruptive. And that a lot of times people just have these crazy myths. I'll give you, for example, that when the train was invented, women were admonished not to ride it because it would go too fast and their uterus would fly out of their body.
Oh,
yeah.
You know what? Could you sign me up for that train?
Please.
Right?
I'll sit next to you.
So
Joanna.
much better than a hysterectomy, it sounds like.
Right, just ride a train. Well, goodness.
Ride a train, instantaneous hysterectomy. It's like, awesome.
That's not
now, was it a partial or was it a full?
I don't know. But, it wasn't until Charles Dickens actually went over a cliff and dangled on a train car and then lived to tell the tale. And of course, he was a pop culture icon. And that sort of brought everybody back to their senses like, well, there's a hero for you. Nobody had to lose a uterus in the making of a train, crash. And here it became mainstream. So I wonder if there's anything crazy that you've heard in the world.
Oh, where do I begin?
Go for it. I mean, go for the crazy facts that you've seen. I mean,
look, let me just start with, I've been in this space in tech for 25 years and AI for the last 15, building AI products that are obviously used by millions. So whether, you talked about the mother of cognitive experience design, we'll dive into what that really is. But the early work that I did with IBM Watson all the way to the consumer work and Alexa. And I will tell you, my favorite is that Alexa's always listening. And this fear, or where did she get her name? But let me start with the always listening, and that's a debunk. Like, we've got to really dispel the privacy. There's narrative fallacy in the privacy of how the technology actually works. So and I also start with my favorite was, I said, so you don't know Jeff Bezos, do you? He is the most frugal I have ever met. And I got to tell you, it's the part of why this company is a success. And do you know what it would cost to listen to everything that you had to say?
Good point. Fair point.
Okay.
Right? The
what
minutia.
We're listening for is the linguistics of the word Alexa. And that is very different from having a microphone that is always on and recording your every interaction. Frankly, that is never and was never the intention behind why. I mean, there's a lot of cynicism in the marketplace today around big tech. And some of that's well-founded. let's be I've been in big tech, there's pluses, there's minuses, but I have always believed that the pluses truly do outweigh the minuses. And when it came to Alexa, everything from her name, and women actually calling me up and sending me everything from love letters to hate mail about, why did you name it a woman? Didn't you know that is? I said, because the majority at the time of the Alexa team was really quite large, but there was a almost majority women that were working on this product. And if you were going to create an all-knowing system, the wisest system on the planet, wouldn't you want it to bestow the gender of a woman? I think I'm pretty freaking wise. And if it was like emulating me, it would be great.
It's like a phone a friend.
That is correct. And so I always looked at it and said, sometimes I still believe in a free market. So I was like, if the name so bothers you, we have done this really remarkable thing. You can change that wake word. And the second part of that is you don't like it, don't buy it.
Right. Cara and I have talked about this. Cara, you agree that women's voices are actually more trusted? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, right, for sure. And I can hear, like, I'm guessing that maybe some of the pushback was, oh, it's a helper. So, why does it have to be a female voice? But I love the way you frame it, Joanna, that it's more of who's the wisest and who are we going to feel has like the big picture answer. And certainly that is a space for where women need to be.
Absolutely. And so let's take it back just a little bit. So that's like one of the biggest one is that we've been just siphoning them all this voice data and we're coming for your privacy. And the reality is that was never the intent. And when we envisioned an audio computer, because that's what it was, they used to call them smart speakers. If you know anything about Amazonian culture, which I absolutely love and have instilled so much in my Vibes AI life, that like it doesn't leave you. Once it's there, it doesn't leave you. And one of the things is that we're all Star Trek nerds. Now, I walked into Amazon being a Star Trek nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, there's kind of two pinnacle stories that underpin this. If you understand Star Trek, you'll remember these in Star Trek 1, so the original series. Every episode opens up with Captain Kirk talking. And what does he say? Captain's log, star date, this, and this year. Let me record this information, right? And creating a corpus of information about the science and the travels of the Starship Enterprise. And taking and codifying those findings to what? An audio computer.
Amazing.
Okay, so that the concept of it has a direct link to sci-fi. The second part, and this was one of my favorite Alexa stories, is that the name in and of itself starts in a place of where Vulcans were educated. Was the computer was trained to emulate the Library of Alexandria.
Whoa.
So we understand that the Library of Alexandria that held all of the Enlightenment's great thinking for all of the great thinkers held this place, right? This place before it burns, but before it burns, it's codified and we've replicated it. And so Vulcans, who are very logical in their thinking, have brought an all-knowing computer thing. So one of my favorite Star Trek movies is number 4, when they go back to Earth and they have to retrain Spock, and you get to see it on display and he's being quizzed. Instead of you asking the question is being prompted. You are being prompted, the computer. You are the computer being prompted to answer the question. And that is a form of learning. It was actually machine learning demonstrating in reverse.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So you think about those two stories, the Library of Alexandria, from this. But the real story, right? The real story was Jeff had this wild idea that the world needed a universal cart. And it would happen in like a phone like this. And to some degree he was right, but maybe the execution was wrong. But the one thing that emerges out of the failure of the Fire phone is Alexa.
It's pretty impressive.
And so what I love about that is that you could have an epic failure but out of it comes a really important learning about where the real market traction is.
I love this concept of failing forward, and I love that you're willing to put it on the table. I mean, people that go first, like you, Joanna, literally have to be able to learn from what didn't work.
Yeah, look, I always look at it as every innovation, every invention is a thesis first. What is your thesis of the market? What is the hypothesis of the solution that the market needs? Take it from its core and then work to iterate it out. And my strategies of where I've had success has not always been like, let me go explore all the green field in the world and let me plop this innovation over here in the green field, which is, let me explore the green field where we can place a North Star. Let me understand where the market is today and how we migrate that green field over. Like how we move people from where they are today, meet your customers where they're at today. And that is iteration. That is experimentation. That is going into, I don't look at it as failure as much as I look at it as learning. And walking in with the humble nature to say, this is a thesis. It might be wrong, but if it is, I can pivot just enough and start making incremental changes to ensure that we have a good product market fit. And so that has always been how I have approached my work and the work, my past work and the work that, is in front of me. And it's something that you learn through lots and lots of experiments, lots of things. I can tell you 1,000 ways voice and AI doesn't work. And it took 1,000 ways to get to the one way that it does.
Well, I really love that we're having this conversation. I hope that our audience understands that part of our premise is that everyone belongs in the conversation. And I want to point out about our co-founder here, Cara, is that she was not, as she will tell you, was not proficient in tech or the legal space, but found a niche, like you say, here's what the market needs. And go ahead, Cara, talk a little bit about your background, because I think it's relevant.
Yeah. If I had to put a fine point on it, I'm a communications person who's really been interested in like big systemic problems in our society. So that was related to being in public health for a while, academic public health, and just other spaces. Always been really interested in sort of societal level levers and how we can, move the needle. And so, marketing person, communications person, that kind of vibe. But AI gets me really, really excited because I see it as a potential anyway to solve these big systemic problems that we just don't have enough human brain power to solve. And so that's how we got into legal technology and sort of a space where, there's just not enough brilliant human lawyers to solve the need, to serve the need. So, and I don't know, that's what gets me really excited. Like, I think if we build things right, and that's of course still a big question, is are we going to build things right?
Yeah.
We could
Big
do
question.
that. So that's what gets me up in the morning.
Oh, I love that. It's very inspiring as somebody who's, in the space of, I've certainly been the tech, but I was not in health. As a matter of fact, I was almost allergic to it.
To help?
Yes. Actually, the answer to that is yes. In my youth, absolutely. I did so much ridiculous crap to my body and soul that probably impacted my soul long term. But I'm a typical
It was fun.
Like, come on, let's let it all hang out, ladies.
I was Gen Xers.
Watched MTV. We were latchkey kids. I look at if the boomers had smoking, we were drinkers.
Yeah. Well, we had a president who told us that ketchup was a vegetable, so it wasn't really our fault.
That's right. And who knows what we've been ingesting for the last 50 years in the sugars and the fructose corn syrups and you name it. Like that's a whole podcast episode into itself. But for me, had you asked me when I was a kid where I'd be today? And the answer is no. Look, I started this career, and look, if I just kind of go back for a second, when I started in my space, I'm severely dyslexic. and I've spent my life hacking text interfaces.
Mm.
And
Oh,
the
wow.
ability to hack my way into technologies. So it started out so that I could read, so I could make myself intelligent. Because when you are dyslexic, and like, let's time box this for listeners who might be on the younger side. We did not have a culture of accepting cognitive disabilities. And so what would happen is incredibly smart kids like me were put into special needs classes and were forgotten about, pointed to, and called stupid. And the last thing, like, and then you were othered.
Mhm.
And that made you not love school. But I had a mom who knew that here I was tinkering with electronics. I had this wild imagination. And it wasn't that I didn't want to read, it's that I couldn't. I didn't have the tools to do it. And
Mhm.
so she was one of the first people. It's like, she could see that I was an auditory learner, and an observational learner. And I think part of that is also the natural design sense. She's design was in architecture construction. Um, and so was innovative in her own right, and was a mom looking for solutions for this wild-eyed, imaginative kid that had pent-up energy that needed to. What was really interesting is I was very good at language. If I
Mhm.
heard a language, I could pick up a language. I
Mhm.
didn't need to read to learn something. Just by being in an environment, I could observe and enough to put it together. If you fast forward to now and you reflect backwards, my entire life and existence has been hacking those text interfaces in order to make me feel smarter. Now, there's some
Wow.
psychology to that. There's definitely like some psychology. It took me to be 40 to say out loud that I was dyslexic or that I had a learning disability.
Mhm. It's certainly stigmatized now. I think
Absolutely, and I think we're doing a good job of destigmatizing it.
yes.
But anything that I could do to fit in, so it wanted you to say fit in, whether it was in school, at a job, right? Needing more time. Because look, the only neurological difference between somebody who is on the spectrum of autism and and has dyslexia, we are kind of like polar opposites in that in your brain you have axons. Axons are the telephone poles that, think about it as like if you were playing the game of telephone, the message gets to here and then it fires off and does another piece of the process. Well, if we think about AI computers, not just as a whole, have always been to emulate the human brain. That's how we think.
Mhm.
And so the more that I got involved in tech, the more I understood about myself and decoding what it meant to have dyslexia. So your axons, if you are on the spectrum of autism, are generally somewhere very, very close together, those axons. So you see that signal go across really, really fast, right?
Mhm.
Those of you on audio only, I'm waving my fingers in front of me because what you're seeing is that signal process very fast, and it has an explanation often for the outward behaviors of sometimes rocking. Um, there's a lot of audio that have to do with that, but also the repetitive tasks, and so that information is processed quicker. And so because it is so quick that often it comes with social awkwardness.
Mm.
Okay, people who are on now here's the difference. People who have dyslexia, their axons are far apart. So when
Mm.
you are transmitting phonetics across those telephone lines, it has a longer way to go. And so it takes a lot longer to process the information, retain the information, and store it and move on to the next process of understanding how this letter phonetically fits to this sound, which is in an average brain. Let's say if that was the distance, we're over here. But in that, we have other superpowers. And so while that's happening, the other thing that's happening is spatial recognition. The other thing that's happening is the power of, and this one is like a great computer, pattern recognition.
Mm.
I was wonderful at recognizing patterns. I was a visual learner for a very long time. I introduced to comic books, storybooks with pictures. And then, mom figuring out how to get like a dictaphone and start reading my assignments to me.
Brilliant.
That is why in Hebrew school, anything that was put to song, I could learn like this.
Mm.
Languages, I could learn to sing in Spanish before I could read in Spanish. And I understood I had a better understanding of it. So again, the recognition that you say, okay, our neurological differences create these opportunities for innovation and invention. And what look, when you have enough self-work, you realize, what I've been doing all along is teaching computers to learn like me.
It's incredible. I know you're passionate in this space, and I want to get to that. And the AI. We ask our guests, how are you using AI? I think it would be easier to sum up how you're not using AI, because AI is across everything you do, and for such a long period of time.
I would say, look, I have two categories of usage. It's like I'm a super user in everyday tasks of here's the stuff that I don't like doing that I'm outsourcing. Here's the stuff that I love doing that give me joy, that need sometimes finite detail, or far more complex problem solving, which I have an addiction to.
So let's talk about that. What is that? What is it that you're passionate about in that space?
Well, for me, look, we talk about cognition, and the reason, so much we talk about cognitive experience design, the area of neuroergonomics, and cognition isn't just a professional passion. It is a subject that's really deeply personal to me. Now, I've told you my story around, cognition, but my family's experience, things like cognitive decline firsthand. So when we look at cognition at its healthiest, and its difference, and then we can talk about how we go into cognitive decline as we age. And so that was a big part of me in some of my early work. It's actually being interested in joining the Alzheimer's Association, an organization called Caring Kind, that focuses in on cognitive health and wellness. But I left Amazon to start a company that would solve, to me, one of the pressing times of the intelligence era. It's what AI was really, I know in my IBM days, was here to do, which was we are inundated with data and we're starving for wisdom. Data is not wisdom. And it is actually rewiring our brains. In order for us to be cognitively well, we need the tools to do that. So one of the earliest innovations that I was able to find is that we have biomarkers for our cognitive function embedded in our speech and voice. And so if you understood that, I went bing, 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 in a world where we measure everything that's important to us. We're not measuring the most important thing. Like, listen, I measure my house, my car, my weight, my glucose, it's like everything. The most important thing to me, the thing that runs the whole system, is my brain. And so, I think about that, right? We're not tracking that most important vital organ of the body, which is the human brain. And there are 12 factors to healthy cognition. And in those 12 factors, one of them is age. So we know 11 of them are modifiable. And so as a consummate, as I talked about in my misspent youth watching MTV, going to parties and drinking, now I'm a biohacking rejuvenation Olympian fighting off chronic diseases. Like my dad had diabetes. I had a grandmother with Alzheimer's. And when you become super vigilant about your brain health, what you begin to do is realize that I had no way to check my cognitive fitness until I went to a physician at 50. And it took me 10 hours to get an appointment with a neurologist, 10 days to get the results back. And because there's nothing wrong with my brain other than some menopause, it's 10,000 in out-of-pocket expenses. Oof. And so I went, this is broken, right? And my favorite part of this was just to find out the brain is good. memory issues are much more hormonally linked. But there are preventative neurofitness things that I can do, which, by the way, some of them are audio based. Aha. I went looking for them, and I got thrown into like a one size fits all. You're like, it's 40 hertz for this, it's 420 hertz for this. You're like, this is the Wild West. Some of it feels very woo-woo, not science back, or is this mind control? Immediately I go to the sci-fi, like, whoo, what is this? And realize this is just a broken system. And what I could do is bring that practice of saying, we can solve this, and we can solve this in a way that first gives us an area as something to assess your cognitive function through your voice, and utilize artificial intelligence to give you restorative brain activities in a world where we're starving for that wisdom, to actually bring you that wisdom, to whisper that wellness into your ear, which today I'm actually wearing one of our Vibes AI prototypes. And so as I'm speaking, and even through those small snippets of the commands, the first feature was like, oh, I think, people are going to be like dialoguing with their phone. As being one of Alexa's moms, I can tell you it's more like we are still in a transactional relationship with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people do use it for companionship. Please don't get me wrong. There is a subset that is still emerging. The majority of us are looking at it very transactionally. I call it thing sourcing. And, turn off that light. And it isn't because of the capabilities, what we trust it and need it to do. And so, but we do want more out of it. And we want to outsource more tasks to it, but it just really hasn't had the opportunity to do that. And one of those outsourcing tasks in a world that is, I was just having this conversation with a news organization in South Korea, which is, you have filled the airwaves with a lot of opinions, and while educated opinions matter, it's very hard to find the right ones and to dispel through this, to truly educate a society. So might I, as a part of cognition, begin to develop an AI system that knows, under the belief that what we feed our brains, what we hear, is the way that we wire our brains, and that wiring is ongoing, and you can unwire and rewire things. And so with that was the foundation of why I left Amazon to found Vibes AI in a crux, right? To create a biosensing AI platform and devices that helped us to truly find wisdom.
Thank you for joining us on Building AI Boston. Stay tuned for more enlightening episodes that put you at the forefront of the conversations shaping our future.